But we're going to start with AminoFormula. Okay, so we're going to start with this little handout for all your trainers and members. Put it on social media as your promotions, whatever you want to do. But the bottom line is we're going to maximize daily recovery and exercise-induced results. Hey, get paid overtime for your workout. We're going to supply the direct muscle building signals and building blocks in extreme low calories. Build, remain. These are all the one-liners from our top trainers around the world, right? Build and maintain muscle better and longer beyond protein. That's the key, and that's what you're going to see as we go through the little lecture here. Amino acid blend that takes muscle support, energy levels, daily recovery to the next level, giving you the ability to control your body composition while enhancing recovery, muscle, and performance gains. So it's a premier plateau buster. Maximize the anabolic effect with the lowest calories. So again, that's it. You know, I always say, I don't want to leave any results in the gym. You got to get paid for all this work that you did. And then I can also prolong your active lifestyle. So that's all, just a simple, we're going to start with this and we'll finish with that. Those are the flavors. I just post them there, basically on order of sales. The top three pretty much sell equally. All right. So there's two categories of performance supplements. And since we're talking about the two categories, one, acute performance. In other words, something you take and immediately you perform better. And that is the evidence-based supplements that fall in that category: creatine, caffeine, beta-alanine, and then, of course, proper carbohydrate loading and sodium bicarbonate to a certain extent. We're not going to be talking about those here. But that's something that you take immediately and improves performance. And then there's the long-term, because you get better recovery after each workout that improves performance. You can't measure that the next day or the next day, but 6 weeks down the road, you can measure that you've got a little more muscle than you would have, and you recovered better, and you had less sick days, and all those types of things happen. So you can measure. And those are the long-term evidence-based supplements like protein, obviously. Creatine actually crosses over because it enhances recovery. But we're going to talk about the essential amino acid formulas today, and then glutamine is conditional. All right, so the bottom line, this is we're going to talk about category 2, which is AminoFormula beyond protein to enhance muscle protein synthesis, which is for long-term better recovery enhancement. All right, so let's get started. What the formula is, it's 8 amino acids. And they happen to be essential amino acids, something the body cannot make. And of course, there are 9 essential amino acids. We just don't need tryptophan in the formula because that would mess everything up. And of course, the body doesn't need tryptophan to activate muscle protein synthesis. It just needs it to finish the process, which we get plenty from our diet. But so what it actually did, these great scientists around the world, I was just lucky enough to be contracted to write a chapter for postgraduate nutrition on amino acids in sport. So I was cut way ahead of the curve, and I just got to see what all these great scientists had done. What they had done is the question was, what is it in protein that actually turns on the muscle building signal, which is what we call the mammalian target rapamycin. There's a signal in there that it just targets, and that turns on muscle building. Whether you work out or not, it doesn't matter. That's what turns on, because your body's always building muscle every 4 hours, tearing it down every 4 hours, whether you work out or not. And of course, if you don't work out, then it just shrinks as you get older, but you're still going through that same wave. So they noticed that it was just, there are 8 amino acids that did that. And so what they did is they took that and fed that. So astronauts, actually, they would give it to astronauts. As you know, when astronauts go into space, the biggest problem they have is the loss of muscle. And their immune system crashes because all these bad things happen because there's no gravity. So they could actually feed them these signals right here that you're going to be giving to your customers and everything else. They could feed these signals and keep their muscle going. And obviously, they're not even working out. And they, of course, there's no gravity. So the big thing, so I just kind of hacked into those databases, kind of got all that information, and we were able to commercialize this thing, and the rest is history. It's the #1 recovery product anywhere on the planet when it comes to sports or anything, and just even goes beyond that for people that don't work out, which we'll look at. So the bottom line is that's what it is. These are the actual triggers of muscle protein synthesis without all the protein around it, just the molecules. And what the goal is to improve whole body net protein synthesis, because don't forget, we're not just trying to improve muscle protein synthesis, which is part of whole body, but everything's rebuilding. Your trillions of cells are rebuilding every day. And of course, the amino acids are part of the rebuilding process. So whether it be an organ, whether it be your bones, whatever, it's always rebuilding. So we call that a whole body muscle protein, a whole body protein synthesis. That's why I put that in there. And we can do it while we control body composition. The only way we could do it in the old days was eat so much food, and then you have to, of course, you're gonna gain ridiculous weight to try to get that much protein. But if we can get the molecules that turn on the muscle building without all the calories, man, we can control body composition. That's what it comes down to. So the ability to control body composition while enhancing muscle size, that's hard to do, very hard to do, and performance gains. Back in the day, you had to bulk up, cut down, you still do. Obviously, bulk up, cut down, all that in order if you're going to feed muscle. And then, of course, we end up starving the body fat at the very end, but you end up losing a little bit of muscle. Well, this can keep the muscle going for a long, long time, much more than protein can by itself. And we'll look at the little graphic that puts that all together. But we can enhance muscle size and performance gains and keep our body fat down. Now, here's the big thing. So here's your word, your take-home word, hyperaminoacidemia. Because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the amino acids, those right there, into your muscle, because they are the one that flip on the switch to build muscle. And the more you can get in there, the more you can have muscle protein synthesis. And of course, there's a limit to everything, but the bottom line is protein itself can't do it. Whole food can. It takes 4.5 hours to break down food, and then it's scattered all over the body. A protein powder that has all 20, well, that gets there a little bit better, but not than food, obviously, because that can be in there in 30, 60 minutes. But you still got 20 amino acids, and they're scattered all over the place. These actually can get directly to the muscle, and I'll show you, we'll have a diagram there. So what do we use this for? Well, here's the beauty of this product. There's really no population untouched when it gets right down to it. So when we're working with the athletic population, so you're looking at an athlete that wants to be an athlete their entire life, whether it be a pro athlete or a college athlete, or whether it be a recreational athlete, they want to do it their whole life. Here's how it works for them. It's what we call protein stacking. So you would end up with this combination we just talked about in proportion to the demand. So how much the body can actually use, because it's one thing to give you just the branch chain, isoleucine, leucine, and valine. But if you don't have the other 5 that are involved in turning on muscle protein synthesis, then it's the limiting factor. They're not there, so it just stops. That's what the difference is between this and just a branch chain, because obviously it has the branch chain. So we're supplying those triggers for muscle protein synthesis, delivering an additive, so there's another word for you, additive muscle protein synthesis effect to daily ingestion of intact protein. Intact protein is all 20 amino acids, whether it be food or whether it be powder. And then we would optimize the user, the exerciser's muscle protein synthesis recovery. And that whatever potential there is based on their workout to maximize prolonged gains. And it's called protein stacking using multiple protein formats. So you're eating, so you're getting protein from your foods. Then you're taking your protein powder 30 or 40 minutes before the workout. Then right when you start the workout, or 10 minutes before, you start drinking your essential amino acid formula, this one here. And now you've got amino acids coming in there, your hyperaminoacidemia, you've got a whole different flow of those aminos hitting there. And you'll see some diagrams here, significantly improve the recovery process, because that's what it's all about. So the goal with this group is to protein stack. So you're adding it to all the other sources, fully recover and avoid the inevitable plateaus. We're all going to come to a plateau. We all get that. But if we can push it off like Tom Brady has pushed it off, and we can push off all of these other things like, some of these older athletes that are wildly successful, which many of them we work with, bottom line is you can do things longer. Well, it's the same thing for everybody. It's easier for a recreational athlete. And the bottom line is we're controlling body composition while we're doing that. Now, here's where a complete flip. It also works for the non-exercising adult population. And I'm sure you just figured out, we just talked about astronauts, right? But this was actually discovered for the aging population. One of the biggest healthcare costs we have today is because of sarcopenia and the loss of bone, the loss of muscle from aging. Well, so the whole goal is for these scientists to figure out how can we keep this muscle a little bit longer so people don't fall and break and all these things happen, lose their balance. So the non-exercising adult population, which unfortunately is about half the population, this was actually designed for originally. I'm the one that just brought it into the athletic world. But the bottom line is non-exercising adult population. So it's a low calorie, and now you understand how it works, muscle protein synthesis supplement to slow the declining net muscle protein balance, which starts for anybody that doesn't exercise. It starts in the later part of your third decade, which is in your 20s. Okay, it actually starts a little bit after puberty. Everything, of course, slows down dramatically. And then by the fourth decade of 30, you're definitely going backwards. And you're just going to be losing muscle in a significant, every decade of life, a significant percentage of your muscle is being lost. Well, if we can slow that down, we can't completely stop it. We can significantly slow it down with a product like this in the non-aging population, because we keep turning on muscle when it's saying, oh, we don't usually turn on muscle at this point. So we can keep doing that, and significant, again, that's where it all started. Then we can slow the muscle loss and all the related aspects of that, which is balance, bone strength, muscle strength, which all leads to injury. And we do it with a relatively low nitrogen. If you were to bring up the protein content in these people, they'd have all this extra nitrogen, they'd have all the extra sulfur and everything else from that. You can get this in a very low cal. So this works with the aging population significantly. And then anybody, which we'll look at, that wants a low calorie, nitrogen, non-sulfur producing support for muscle protein anabolic needs. And we're going to look at all this in the very end here. And then calorie restrictions. So this can be your sole. So rather than doing the protein stacking that we talked about up here, this can be your sole pre and post supplement. And you will recover pretty close to what you would do here. But the bottom line is there's many people that have to go through aggressive weight loss. And some of the fighters we work with, and anybody that has to make a weight class, this will be their only pre and post workout supplement. So they can still get that anabolic process, but really be able to reduce the calories, because this turns on muscle stronger than anything else does. All right, so here's a picture. I promised you a picture, and this is part of a much bigger lecture than I do. But the bottom line, the goal is to stimulate muscle protein synthesis incrementally from the protein you're taking in, by maintaining a balance of the essential amino acids proportionate to the demand and the demand potential is you. If you don't work out, the demand isn't that much, but we can still get you above what you would get from normal protein. If you're working out a lot, the demand to potential, this will satisfy that. Okay, and these are just some fancy stuff here about the whole lectures. Again, it's part from my chapter that I put together for them. But the bottom line is this. Let's take a look at it. Let's go inside the muscle for a minute. Let's go inside the muscle. All right, so here, remember I talked about the mammalian target of rapamycin? That's mTOR. That senses everything. What that does, that senses everything that's going on in the muscle. It senses what's coming into the muscle. It senses what's going on with the contraction. And of course, as you're contracting, it starts breaking things down. We all know that. Muscle exercise only breaks down muscle. It does not build it. The nutrition obviously builds it. But if this is going on, whether you work out or not, you're breaking down muscle. You're just not building any if you're not working out. Okay, so what we do here is we take those 8 essential amino acids we talked about that are responsible for this activation of mTOR, and they start coming in here, right? And when they come in, here's what's happening. They get a straight shot to the muscle. Remember, I just said food takes 4 hours to break down, and by that time, the amino acids are scattered everywhere, because once you break it down in your stomach, it's got to get transported into it, goes from the portal vein, goes to the liver, and then the liver decides what it wants to send the aminos. Well, the same thing with the protein powder, except you don't have to go through the digestive process that much. So there's a little more amino acids available sooner. But these 8, there's less competition during this period for the intestinal transporters to get in. So that's one. There's less splanchnic extraction. What that means is just a fancy word for your liver. Obviously, everything goes to the liver first. Liver decides where I'll send the branch chain to the brain. No, I'll send it over there. I'll send it this way. This actually bypasses splanchnic extraction and makes it straight to the muscle. And then you end up with greater activation of everything that's going on at this particular time. And we end up with exactly what we want, the perfect ideal environment of hyperaminoacidemia, which increases muscle protein synthesis, and then again, whole body protein synthesis. And if you take a look at this formula here, and trust me, I just stole it from those guys, and I commercialized it because it was never commercialized before. It is exactly the exact formula in the right dosage that satisfies this. Otherwise, you end up the limiting factor if you leave one of these out or if you don't have the same right numbers. So that's what will happen there. So these are the ones that turn on the green lights, and they stop the red lights. See, the red lights all stop because, again, when you're breaking down tissue, something has to happen, right? And so these red lights are trying to stop that, but this turns on those things and can stop some of the red lights. And then you end up with increased protein synthesis. So just a quick little diagram to kind of give you a little science. And so how about proving that works? Well, these are all fairly new studies. Oh, they're all brand new studies, I should say, just in the last couple of years. And it was probably because, we were the first to commercialize it, but this was just a scientific formula back in the day. But you take a look at what they did. They proved out what we had surmised back in 2005. This faster increase and a higher peak of skeletal muscle amino acid concentration. Protein alone can't get there. So look at this. They compared a low dose, so half a dose of what we tell you to take of the essential amino acids, a low dose to a full dose, which we tell you to take. So that's 12 grams versus 6, against a regular protein powder with all the exact equal amounts of amino acids in them. And look what you end up with. You end up with this one, the 12 grams. Look at the concentration of amino acids inside the muscle. Remember, hyperaminoacidemia, that's what we're looking for. You've got more. All of this does, it means there's more protein synthesis going on in this window. All right. This is the 6-gram dose, which is still more than the full protein dose. Now imagine if you have the full protein dose coming in and you have this coming in, and that's what you ended up with. So it translated to this. It translated to more protein being built, this much more protein. So 2 or 3 times the protein built from regular just protein intake, along with a protein powder. Adding this to it, you ended up with a net protein balance, significantly more. So this was a quintessential study that really just laid it all out. There's been a ton of them since, but here's the conclusions from this one here. There's an interactive effect between the free essential amino acids and whey protein that makes their combination highly anabolic and dose dependent, because 12 work better than 6. There's a limit there, and that's in another lecture we'll talk about, that exceeds the anabolic response to whey protein-based supplement by approximately 3 to 6-fold, as you can see. That's crazy numbers. For the low, obviously, the 6-gram dose only increased at 3, and 6 with the 12-gram. And that's evaluated on a gram-by-gram basis. So pretty crazy. And here's a compilation of all the studies, and they're all referenced here. Essential amino acids sources that produce a large rapid increase in peripheral, right, essential amino acid concentration are recommended to improve muscle and whole protein synthesis. Multiple protein formats, foods, intact proteins, and isolated essential amino acids can maximize muscle protein synthesis potential throughout a lifetime, especially when energy is restricted and there's your body composition. So it's just nice to be validated by it, even though we figured it out, many years ago. It's nice to be validated when you start seeing all the studies come out on it. So now you can see why this is. So let's just talk about usage here real quick. All right, who are the beneficiaries in typical use? Well, we just kind of covered that already, but athletes for continuous physical progress, breaking or avoiding plateaus. That's the protein stacking that we saw on the first goal. Low calorie, high anabolic pre and post supplement to maximize muscle protein synthesis when you have severe calorie restrictions. So in other words, you wouldn't use the protein 30 or 40 minutes before because of the extra calories there. You would just use this as a pre-post recovery product because you're trying to make weight. And of course, we do the same thing with bodybuilders the last couple of weeks of competition to get their calories down, but get the same anabolic effect or as close as we can. Then older athletes, this becomes really important. I'll give you an example about how I use it. I'm not an athlete anymore, but obviously I was, and I pretend I still am to a certain extent, even though I ride a horse that's the athlete, so I can pretend like I'm as good as the horse in running and so forth. But the bottom line, I'll show you how to use that. But the bottom line becomes more important for us because those 8 essential amino acids all by themselves can keep that muscle turned on better than any whole protein source alone. And then again, multiple training sessions. You look at our Olympic athletes that are on the fields pretty much all day doing stuff, especially track athletes, they drink this like Gatorade. So it's constantly tricking in to keep that recovery process taking place as you're tearing down muscle. And then non-exercisers, as we talked about, over 30 years to help stave off the age-related loss of muscle. And then again, anybody that wants to, improve, the aging process, improve a better protein supplement. So it can be anybody, as we just talked about. The dosing is on the label. I'm not wanting to go over it here. Just read the label. It'll tell you what to do. You know, NSF has trouble with some of the way I do things by pounds, and they hate that I do that because it's basically the FDA doesn't like it because people can't do the math on their weight versus the dosages. But as you know, in the practitioner dietary supplement game, I am psycho about the way I do things because we work with, you know, these multi-million-dollar players and everything else, and their coaches all that stuff. So they see all this, they go, okay, these guys obviously know what they're doing. So I actually put that down for anybody that's interested, but just read the label and you'll get it. The non-exerciser's interesting though. You don't take it the same way. That's a call out I have here. The non-exerciser actually uses, as you can guess, between meals. They've got their regular protein coming in for muscle protein synthesis, and then this one is in between meals, picking up the difference there. And that's why the non-exerciser drinks it 3 times daily between meals with the last dose right before bed. And again, you know, these things are on the label. All right, so here's how it fits in your baseline with no stacking. So this would be using it as a sole pre and post workout. There's your baseline stuff as you have right there. And on the workout days, you take your 1.5 scoops, start about 10 minutes before your workout and drink it throughout the workout like a Gatorade. You would. And you can add it to Gatorade, by the way. All right. And then 1 scoop immediately following the workout. So that's how you use it without the protein stacking. On the protein stacking, here's where it is. And this is all the stuff we already talked about. If you're exercising, what you'll do on your protein, you're taking 25 to 35 grams, whatever. And again, depending on your size, 30 to 40 minutes before your workout. And you repeat that dose 30 minutes after you take your AminoFormula post-workout. So down here, that's repeated down here. So there, you take this 5 to 10 minutes before and continue drinking, as we just talked about, to about the midpoint, right? Or you can just finish it at the end and put all scoops in it if you want. That's up to you. Then take 1 scoop immediately. So you can combine the 2, and then you can just drink it and finish it at the end. But you don't take this one until 30 or 40 minutes post this. All right. Now you've got them all crossing and you are maximizing recovery. So that's how you do the protein stacking. So you can print this out, give it to your customers. It's on the website as well, but you can do whatever you need to do with these things. That's what they're for. So this is, you know, again, this is again, if you guys don't use Alinamar, so I'm not. But if they are using Alinamar, this is the one protein powder that you don't use for a pre-post because of all the fiber in it. All the other ones you can use for a pre-post, so you can do your muscle stacking. But this is ideal for weight loss, especially in the aging population, using Alinamar for their meal replacements integrated into their meal planning daily, and then you're using the AminoFormula before and after the workout only. And this can be a lifetime solution for anybody that wants to remain active. Very inexpensive as well, because the protein powder saves you a fortune in groceries. Then an old guy, I told you about that. I just put in my regular thing. Everybody always wants to know what are the things that you take or you do, all that kind of stuff. But this really, the whole idea of taking it like this for the older exerciser is to help overcome the age-related protein exercise resistance. I mean, our body's resistant. We're not supposed to be here. So our body doesn't want to make any protein anymore. It doesn't want to do anything anymore, right? So we've got to offset that. And this is how we can do that with that. So I forget about, this is my daily routine. I get up at 4 o'clock every morning. Yes, I drink tons of coffee. But the workout starts then. So about 5:45, I'm 1.5 scoops of AminoFormula and then 1 scoop post-workout. But I'm drinking it during the workout as well. Just so you know, I can drink it all during the workout. So I might put the whole 1.5 scoops and I might finish at the very end. And that's equal to about 40 grams of proteins. That's what it would take to get the essential amino acids out of that, or at least the 1 scoop that is. So you took more than that otherwise. But you can only count it as 25 grams. This is an important note for you to make. So if you're using AminoFormula, no matter what dose you're using or how much you're using, I only allow people to count it as 25 grams of total protein to their protein intake. And we all need 1 gram per pound of lean body mass daily, but this gets to count no matter how much you're using at 25 grams. And the reason for that, because there's a lot of other reasons for protein, regular protein, to be in the body, right? So you can cancel 25 grams of it out, so it's a little cost savings there for you. But the bottom line is, and it could be worth a lot more than that, but I don't want you to miss the other benefits of protein. And that includes finishing the synthesis of muscle, but also satiety, all of those things. So anyway, there's my stacking, my way of stacking. So as you can see, after I finish the workout, I'll have my first string. And again, I don't deserve first string because I'm an old man. I don't need the carbs, but I just pretend I'm an athlete, and all athletes use first string. So I put it in there. And there's another 25 grams of protein in that. And then I have my first food meal right around 10 o'clock. It's pretty large, obviously, with all 40 grams of protein. I take my basic health supplements all at that meal. And then at 3 o'clock, 1 scoop of the AminoFormula. If I don't have a leftover of my earlier meal. If I don't have anything left over, and depending on the activity, I might just use that at that particular point to just keep the muscle protein synthesis a little higher than normal. And then my biggest meal is at dinner. Sometimes I don't tell people this. They go, really? You ate that much at dinner? And I do. That's only because it includes about 300 calories of scotch. And it says here sometimes includes scotch. That's a lie. It's always includes scotch these days. I deserve that now that I'm older. Never drank as an athlete, but I'm making up for lost time these days. Anyway, I take the rest of my daily health supplements at that point. And I think you guys know I do the health and nutrition programs for almost all your top CEOs or celebrities, and this is exactly what pretty much they do. All right, so here we go. Here's some scripts for AminoFormula from our top people like Eve, Brian, Kat, all our top people. And that's, guess what? Right where we started. So these are just the one-liners from that. We already don't have to repeat them. So we started with this and we finished with this, but now it makes sense to you. Those are the direct muscle building signals. Those are the building blocks. And this can help control body composition and keep your muscle building longer. With the, so you're getting, it is your plateau buster. You're getting the maximum anabolic effect with the lowest calories. Now you can understand that. So, but here's some other one-liners. I always like this one. This is from Brian. And I think, again, it makes total sense when you think about it. AminoFormula is like Gatorade for muscles without the junk in it. And again, Gatorade has its purpose, obviously, for endurance athletes. But the point is, without all the other stuff in it, this is actually what a resistance training athlete or a power athlete, a performance athlete would want, like Gatorade. Because as you're breaking down muscle, you're feeding it the aminos to turn it back on. It's the best way to get complete protein activity in your body without actually eating protein. Factual. It wakes up your body and says, let's get this engine roaring and start producing some horsepower. I always love these analogies. These are always better than my little scientific way of explaining it to somebody. That's why I put them in here for you to be able to work with your trainers. It hydrates you down to the cellular level and helps buffer against the muscle catabolism or the breakdown. Added recovery support for essential amino acids, decreased muscle soreness. Now, Kat loves this one. You know, as you know, her son made it to the NBA and all. And of course, that's the biggest group of professionals we work with are NBA players, and they're the first ones to tell you this changed their whole world. They can recover so much faster because no one needs to recover faster than they do. They're not like football players where they get off the field, even if you're a starter on offense, you're off the field 3/4 of the time, because you've got all of the different players, all the position players and everything else going on. Well, basketball players don't get to go off. So that's why we have to have time limits on how many minutes they can actually play before they have to be pulled off. So they need more recovery than anything. And this changed their whole world back in 2006 when we brought it to the world. So you can high quality workouts as long as you desire. Ultimate blend to decrease muscle soreness, speed up muscle repair. I can't imagine working out, this has got to be Eve. I can't imagine working out without AminoFormula. And I know you'll agree, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, once you start drinking this as well. It is your ultimate recovery drink. And making sure you properly recover means it's easier to stay consistent with killer workouts. And that means faster results. I always love that one too. And again, this is the same thing. This is a repeat pretty much at the top. These are just top trainers, and they just put it in everybody's hand right off the bat. So use that for your when you're training your trainers. Make sure you pass that off and use it any way you like. So here's some common FAQs about, frequently asked questions about the AminoFormula. I looked at your email, you know the answer to this now because we covered them all, but I just wanted to make sure you have it all in one spot, because your trainers that are not on right now, they might ask these questions, or they might have a client that asks this. I've been looking at your AminoFormula and I'm wondering why the mixture does not have tryptophan, since that's the 9th amino acid. Well, again, it's purposely not there because it has nothing to do with turning on the signal. It has plenty to do with finishing it. So the answer is simple. These 8 amino acids purposely, AminoFormula, are the molecules necessary to activate muscle protein synthesis. The rest of the 20, the other 12, are needed to complete the synthesis, which is easily acquired from your foods, protein shakes, and the de novo, we make them in the body too of the other ones. Tryptophan, we don't. But we don't need it to turn on the muscle. You'll get plenty from our foods. And here's a note. I always look at it. People always know, almost everybody knows tryptophan in its free form will put you to sleep. We used it for sleep, and there still is prescribed for sleep all the time. So the last thing you want is a free form tryptophan in that formula to put you to sleep. So it's a good thing we don't need tryptophan for activation of the mTOR, because delivered in free form, it can actually put you to sleep. So you definitely don't want that. Anyway, there is no protein listed in AminoFormula. Can I count it as a protein? You got the answer, right? It's purposely not a full protein, obviously, because we only want the 8. We're trying to get rid of all the other amino acids to turn on the signal. So they don't get scattered all in the body. You just get a small amount of those 8 there. So it's purposely there. And yes, you can count it as 25 grams, as I said. And I put some math down here. Just that one scoop of 12 grams, that one scoop, it would take 40 grams of any other protein to get that dosage of amino acids out of there. All right. But you can't count it as 40 grams because, again, I want you to get the rest of it. So although active strength performance athletes still maintain 1 gram per pound of protein, no matter what, right? It's because whole protein has other helpful properties, including satiety. So again, we're not going to just take 25 grams off your need, but again, because you'll get plenty, and that's probably an underkill, if you will. You probably could take more off, but there's other value to protein. All right, and then the soy listed in your soy listed in powders on soy lecithin. Remember that. So the question was, I noticed soy lecithin in your amino formulas and protein powders say contains soy. Well, that's just a ruling. So take this to heart. There is no soy protein in amino formula or any of our powders. And I know I showed you this when we did our powders last time, so we have to repeat this, but it's the same thing. It's soy lecithin and some of the fat. It doesn't cause, it's infinitesimal. You can't even measure it, right? So it's just there because all powders have to have that in there, so it flows and it's mixable all the way around, and it doesn't trigger soy allergies unless someone's got some really hypersensitivity, which is why it has to be posted on the label, which would be a very remote. You'd never run into that person.